Welcome back to the Square State Sandlot podcast. Got Kyle joining me, and I'm your host, Bill. Got a lot of things to talk about. We would love to get into the March Madness tournament, but the NFL said, I don't think so. So we'll probably be talking mostly NFL, especially our teams, and then some other crazy trades that have happened and whatnot. Did want to do a quick shout out, at least to the Wyoming men's basketball. Hell of a season for the boys. Obviously didn't end how we wanted it to. They lost to Indiana in the play-in game and really just played very sloppy. Probably should have won that game if they would have cleaned up the turnovers. But Jeffries has announced that he's going to go pro, so good luck to him. I think the rest of the crew should probably be back, but we'll see. I hope they can hang on with the new transfer portal and all that fun stuff. I'm hoping they can at least keep the core of the team together with EK and Maldonado. I think they're both underclassmen. So anyways, with that being said, there's a little thing called the NFL churning along. You got a bunch of trades, surprise cuts. You've got a bunch of free agent signings. So where do you want to go first, Kyle?
We can get the big one out of the biggest one out of the way. It's been a crazy week, obviously for the NFL. But Aaron Rodgers, though he has said whether or not it's agreed to or not, but Rodgers will be staying in Green Bay, which kind of ends.
Contract is signed.
That drama, sort of. But it's signed now. Okay. Official.
Yep.
So, but the new wrinkle in that obviously has to do with you, and we'll touch a little bit more on it later. But his pal Tae Adams is now being curious about his mind frame right now. I don't know. We'll see where that goes. I think the drama's far from over, but he is returning to Green Bay.
I was really hoping that we could just be like, yep, he's coming back. Great. Move on to the next topic. But with the added wrinkle of the Devontae trade, there's been some speculation that he might not sign his contract, but it has been signed, and he was aware that Devontae was probably not coming back. All the reports I was reading said that Aaron signed that contract knowing that Devontae would most likely not be back because the relationship between Devontae and the front office of the Green Bay Packers had been fractured to a point of no return. So he signed it even knowing that Tae wasn't going to be back, but there are rumors that Green Bay is on the lookout for a veteran wide receiver. One of them that came off the board was –
they have to be.
Yeah. And I think the biggest one that was on the board still was Allen Robinson, and he signed with the Rams. So little case of the rich getting richer there.
Yeah, I still can't believe the Rams got him.
Yeah. So that was
for me the name that really jumps out with the obviously having a whole offense. And I know he hasn't been what he had been. He had a rough year last year with injuries, but a name like Julio Jones really jumps out to me. He could excel, obviously, in a situation with Aaron Rodgers. So I don't know. That's an interesting name that I would watch.
Yeah, and he'll probably come a lot cheaper. I mean, Titans gave up a second and a fourth round pick last year to get him, and really he just didn't do much for him. So obviously Aaron Rodgers is a lot better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill, so he'll make use of him, I'm sure. But he's not going to make up for not having Devontae Adams. They're also losing Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So maybe they'll bring him back now that they don't have Tae. I don't know. That's just, some in-house stuff they could do.
It's a big
but moving on from the Packers, which I wish John was on to discuss a little bit more about his team, but we'll move on to my least favorite team in the NFL, and that is the Denver Broncos. And what they did, they made a little move for Russell Wilson. You want to go over what they gave up?
So basically they're getting Russell Wilson in a fourth-round pick. And they start with Noah Fant, Drew Lock, and Shelby Harris. I'm still blown away that they were willing to get rid of Noah, but I'll let go. But on top of that, they also 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a 5th-round pick. So I mean, it's not like they got him cheap. They're banking on him coming in and being competitive with the rest of that division day one. Shelby Harris and Noah Fant were both better younger players on that team, so it's a little interesting to me that they were willing to shop them. But I mean, I guess when you have a shot at somebody like Russell Wilson and you think he's the answer, I guess you pull the trigger. But it seems a little steep for me. Well, it depends on how it plays out, I guess. But
yeah,
I don't know.
When I saw 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a 5th, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then Noah Fant, their quote unquote star tight end, plus Shelby Harris, who's he's above average defensive lineman. He came from the Raiders first.
For sure.
So I saw him firsthand, but obviously I think Drew Lock was thrown in there to offset some of the contract from Russell Wilson. Obviously Broncos were not wanting to hang on to him, so getting rid of that contract and then getting a 4th back plus Wilson probably makes some sense. I don't know where this puts them in the pecking order in the AFC West. Obviously, there's been some moves since. We'll talk about some of that more. But do you think there's a higher likelihood that the Seahawks or the Broncos win this trade? Obviously, we won't know for several years to come when we figure out what they do with the draft picks and whatnot.
I guess the easiest way for me to say it would be that the Seahawks have already won the trade because, A, they got a Super Bowl out of Russell Wilson. And then this is a huge haul for a quarterback at this stage of his career that you hope comes in and fits in your offense, plays well. Hopefully they bring in the right, playmakers around him because he's going to need help. I'm still a little worried about their run game. I think that's going to put a lot of extra pressure on Russell Wilson. I think in the end, Seattle's going to come out on top, but that's not saying that it doesn't end up being a good trade for the Broncos because, oh man, your division is unreal. They're already in, 4th in that division, and I think it's a bit of a toss-up right now. I could see any of the 4 teams finishing in any of those 4 spots. It's going to be a good fight this year. I think. Good division.
Yeah,
the
division is
Seattle.
Only gotten tougher, but yeah, I think immediately that Denver won the trade just because they got Wilson. But like I said, I think the likelihood that Seattle ends up winning this trade will just hinge on what they do with those draft picks. So I think if they hit on at least 1 or 2 of those picks and they're star players that they think that, first round picks should be, then it's highly likely that Seattle wins this trade.
And they generally draft pretty well. They've picked out some really good players in Pete Carroll's tenure as coach. I mean, likelihood of them pulling some good players out of this is, I would say, very likely. Yeah.
And do you have any inkling of what they're going to do at quarterback? Like, I know they've been posturing and saying Drew Lock is our answer for the immediate future, but if they watched him play the last 3 years, I don't think that's
it actually scares
possible.
Me a little bit because of where they're at in the draft order. Obviously, Pittsburgh's been tied to Malik Willis, and apparently Seattle's pretty high on him as well. So I'm a little concerned that he might go. I think Seattle's picking 9th. I'm not 100% sure, but
I'll check.
I know they're picking ahead of us, but I'm a little concerned that they take a flyer on Malik and snag him out under us. But there still are plenty of serviceable quarterbacks on the market. I mean, they could bring somebody to compete with Drew Lock.
Seattle goes
by for this season.
9th from Denver. So, yeah, I don't know. I think Lock is – he's not a good quarterback. I think he's probably a decent backup. And they were rumored to be in on the Watson talk, but the Watson talk's been narrowed down to New Orleans and Atlanta. just earlier this evening. So he's going to end up in one of those two spots. I think if New Orleans gets Watson, that's going to free up Jameis Winston to probably go to either Carolina or Seattle or one of those teams. But yeah, you guys might be on the outside looking in if you don't trade up if you're trying to get a quarterback in this draft, because there's some quarterback needy teams in front of you, and the likelihood of both. I think you froze. Nope, there you are.
Oh, there we go. I think there's a good chance that we move up a few spots just to get ahead of somebody like the Saints, depending on obviously how this all pans out. I just don't see us moving up that far. And if it happens, I guess.
Well, you think Atlanta's probably going to need a quarterback unless they get Watson. Carolina needs one. Giants might even go quarterback, even though they have Daniel Jones.
They picked up Tyrod, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, that's right. They did. So he'll probably compete at least. But you got Cleveland with the whole Baker Mayfield situation. They might be drafting a quarterback. New Orleans, if they miss out on Watson and Jameis goes elsewhere, they might be drafting a quarterback. So I don't think you guys can sit at 20 and get one of the two that you have your eyes on. So
yeah.
But speaking of AFC West, we'll just run over a couple of the acquisitions real quick. The Chargers signed J.C. Jackson, and they also traded for Khalil Mack. Little friendly reminder, blast from the past for the Raiders. They'll get to face him twice a year now. And then Broncos, obviously, we just talked about. They made the Russell Wilson trade. And what else have they done in free agency? I want to say they've done
Randy
more. But
Gregory backed out on the Cowboys.
Oh, right. Okay, so that's decent addition. I mean, he's not a,
I mean,
it all depends on his health and his head on if he can compete. So, and then the Chiefs, they're reportedly restructuring, they're working on an extension for Tyreek Hill that'll free up some money for them to make some moves. I don't know what they have in their plans, but they're already,
safety.
Did they? Oh yeah, Justin Reed, I think. Yep.
Yeah,
so they signed a
safety because it basically ensured that old Honey Badger's on the outs, probably.
Yeah, and that's still someone that I don't think we can sign him now that we have Devontae and his new 5-year, $141 million deal. You don't even like him.
I don't, but he's good.
Hey, remember last year when I said he was the best safety, and you were like, nah, not even close. Well,
the nice thing is he'll be lined up next to the best safety.
Okay. So he'll shine even brighter, I guess. So anyway, so those are just some of the moves that the AFC West has made and making it a very difficult division to win. I'm very interested to see, after all the dust settles from the draft and all that, where Vegas has the over-under for the win totals for each team in this division, because I feel like they're going to beat up on each other, and then they're going to beat up on everyone else as well. So it's going to be – I would be shocked if all these teams don't have 9+ wins, maybe even 10+ wins. So
I can see it.
It's just a gauntlet in the AFC West right now, which NFC, now I understand why Brady decided to come back, because it's looking pretty weak right now. You got basically Rodgers and Stafford, and that's about it in the NFC. So, which I guess Tom Brady also announced he's coming back, if that wasn't clear from what I just said.
Yeah, that poor guy who bought his football.
Yeah. Oh, that's man. Terrible. Yeah. $500,000 on the last touchdown ever, and now it's probably worth maybe $5,000.
They said $50K.
$50K still?
Yeah, I think they said it was about $50K, I believe, the last thing I read.
I'm shocked it's even worth that much, because it's just another Tom Brady touchdown. Like, sure, it's valuable because there's only, 600 of them, but at the same time, one of 600 is not super rare.
Oh, man.
That might even be more than that. I don't know. How many damn touchdowns has that guy thrown?
A lot.
Tom Brady career
626.
touchdowns. 626. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Boom.
All
I
right.
got
So
lucky and read that earlier.
you want to talk about, I guess one other note for the Raiders. They signed Chandler Jones and obviously traded for Devontae Adams. I think the cuts that they made, then designated post-June 1st cuts, that money's going to free up an extension for Derek Carr. And I do think that the Devontae Adams trade may mean that we cannot hang on to Hunter Renfrow. So that's a little disappointing on my side. I was really hoping they could get an extension done for him this season. But it does make sense that maybe they work on it throughout the season when they see what his true production is going to be when he's not having to be a number one receiver, and then work off that.
If he does it again, I think that deal happens. I mean, if he has another successful season.
Well, I don't think they'll be able to make it happen because of the salary cap, but obviously they'll try as hard. And then they did sign Max Crosby to a 4-year, $98.98 million extension. So good on them for actually.
I cannot wait to see Crosby and Jones.
Oh man, it's going to be tough.
A fun line to watch, man.
Well, and the best part is, like, Ngakoue was a great pass rusher, but he was terrible in run defense. And Chandler Jones is just a stud on both sides. So it's going to be awesome to see what they can do as a duo. And obviously, we still don't have a great interior line presence. So maybe they're going to look at that in the draft. I'm not sure what they're planning on that. We still have some cap space, probably not a ton after the Devontae Adams trade, but I guess we'll see how that contract structure works out. So you want to move on to your Steelers, talk about what they've done so far?
Yeah, we've been pretty active. Obviously, the biggest event, I guess, for the offseason was the quarterback situation. I actually really do like the Mitch Trubisky ad. It's a 2-year deal, $14.25 million. It's very, very cap friendly. It's definitely a prove-it contract, which I don't honestly think that he's, the quarterback of the future or anything like that. But he's a serviceable quarterback, and I think he's going to come in and compete. And he's obviously an upgrade from Mason Rudolph. So I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited that they picked him, but I think we're still going draft for a quarterback. But
yeah, and that wouldn't shock me.
Yeah,
but I did say I would love to see Mitch there in Pittsburgh, and I really think he's going to overperform that contract. And I think there's some incentives in there that can get it up to like 21 million or something like that.
I think it's 25 even.
Yeah,
I'm a little concerned about his down the field, but that ain't nothing new for us in Pittsburgh. So I don't know. I hope he does well.
Come on. Ben was throwing those 20-yard frozen ropes.
Hey, it worked. All right. You take her easy. Some other moves. We re-signed Okorafor, which he's a young tackle. He did struggle at times, but that line was garbage. I actually like the re-sign. He'll be at left tackle, right tackle. Jeez, can't even talk. But the one I'm really pumped about is James Daniels from the Bears. Picking him up was a steal. He's 24 years old. I mean, one of the top guards in the league. I'm so pumped they picked him up. We're already a better line just based off him. And then we also picked up Mason Cole from the Vikings, and he's a good center guard combo. So maybe Kendrick Green comes along, and he struggled so bad last year. I think Mason Cole will start at center. But if he does come into his own and we can bump Cole out to guard, I mean, that's going to be huge for us. So pretty excited with what they've done with the line. They signed Miles Jack from Jacksonville, which I'm so thankful for. I think he's much better than obviously the defense he was on. I think he'll perform really well here. I can't stand Devin Bush, so I'm hoping Miles Jack coming in will either force Devin Bush to get better or we move on from him. Because we released Schobert, which obviously opened up some cap space. We re-signed a bunch of our depth at cornerback, Mollett, Witherspoon, your boy Killebrew. I'm really pumped those guys are coming back. And then we signed Levi Wallace, which I'm super excited about because he played in Alabama with Minka. So I'm hoping with those two on the field together, get some chemistry back on the defense. And, we're going to need it. Corner's a big deal for me. So moving forward, the draft, I think, is really going to be quarterback, linemen, linebackers, and defensive backs. We'll see what they end up with. But, the last move we made, I guess, is releasing Zach Banner, which he was our big mauler lineman, but he couldn't stay on the field. So I'm really not that mad about the move. And it's opening a good chunk of money for us, which granted these is all hearsay, but I've read multiple reports now. It's to make room for Juju and then the old honey badger. Either one of those moves, it's a smart football move, regardless of how I feel about the player himself. But he automatically would make the defense better, and having Juju back, I would absolutely love. He's a gritty wide receiver, and we need that. So we've done a few moves. I'm pretty happy with what we've done, even if nothing else happens, if we just go to the draft with what we've done. So
no, I love the Trubisky deal, and then obviously you guys made some big additions on offensive line. That's one place where the Raiders still haven't really addressed his offensive line. We added a guard, but he projects to be a backup, so probably just a depth piece there. So I think we just have third, fourth, fifth, and sixth round picks in this upcoming draft. So hoping they can maximize those picks and get some interior offensive and defensive line. Linebacker is looking pretty thin now because we cut 3 of the 5 we had on last year's roster. So I'm really interested to see. I think they'll be very, very in tune with the undrafted free agent pool and try to bring in some guys to compete, and hopefully some of them stick.
It's a smart thing to do on a season like this where you've traded your draft away, basically. Do you think there's any chance you guys trade back up to make a move?
I think it would have to be for someone pretty special because, obviously
in my head, the reason I asked is because I've seen a lot of mock drafts projecting your boy out of Utah. What is it, Devin Lloyd?
Devin Lloyd,
I'm just wondering if you thought he would be worth moving up to snag.
I definitely think he's worth having on the roster, but I don't know how much it would cost us to trade back into the first. Obviously, it'd cost us a first from next year and then some. So unless we can swing a trade for a player or something like that, but I don't think we have anyone except for like a Renfro, which I really don't want to give up. But if we're giving up a first round pick, or if we're getting a first round pick, we're going to have to give someone that people want, and that's the only expendable. And I put air quotes up because I really think we could use Renfro this season. And McDaniels is the prototypical offensive coordinator, head coach for a Renfro type. So
yes,
I don't know. I think it makes all the sense in the world to keep him, but I don't think we'll trade back in to get up higher. But I guess I've been shocked several times today with the Chandler Jones stuff. I guess that was yesterday, and then the Devontae Adams trade. I didn't think there was a chance in hell that Devontae Adams was leaving Green Bay. And called me.
I love the moves, man.
You called me, and I did not believe you. I was like, no, that didn't happen. Are you kidding me?
All I have to say is that's moments like that are what makes following sports fun. Like, I could hear it in your voice, just like, no, are you messing with me?
Yeah, I thought you were for sure. I was like, first of all, Kyle doesn't usually call; he usually texts. So
I had to. I was like,
this must be something important. And then you said Devontae, and I was like, no, he's screwing with me. But
I thought he was going to be in Green Bay. I for sure thought after the Rodgers shit, that's how it was going to be.
100%. When Rodgers re-signed, I was like, well, there goes any chances at Devontae. But I guess when your front office for your organization just pisses you off to the point of no return, I guess that's what happened. So, but a couple other crazy moves, cuts. Calvin Ridley, he lost an entire season for betting on NFL games. I think $1,500 in bets, and he's losing 1 year and $11 million of his NFL.
from what I understand, they had was it the Eagles that had a trade?
Yeah.
On the table.
Yep. They wanted
Obviously,
him.
that's out the window.
But the Falcons said, hey, we can't make this trade right now because there's some shit going on. And that's the shit that was going on. He's basically been suspended. They said at least for the 2022 NFL season, so it could go on further than that. It's just real. I don't know how to feel about this because obviously you're not supposed to bet on games that you're a part of, playing, whatever. He bet on his own team. So, like, I understand there's got to be a suspension, but at the same time, the NFL is in bed with all these betting companies. They're advertising for every single commercial break that there is in an NFL football game, trying to get all these people to gamble away their life savings to bet on NFL games. And so it seems pretty asinine to me to be saying, we're going to cut your season, or we're going to cut off a year of your career for betting $1,500 on a game with one of our partners that we promote as the preferred NFL sports betting company. It's just stupid to me. So,
well, I think
I don't know.
Two layers to it for me is I've always felt like this was dumb. If you're betting on your own team, I don't see any issue with it because you're not obviously fixing a game at that point. Now, if he was betting for his team to lose and they kept losing, I get that there's some – this is the whole Pete Rose thing all over again. I've always thought it was so dumb if you were betting on your own team. So that's one layer of it for me. Oh, go ahead.
He was away from the team, though. Like, he wasn't even playing in these games. So, like, I could understand if he was using insider information or something like that, and he knew someone wasn't going to be playing, so that's why he bet. But he bet for his team every time.
And that's what I mean. Like, it just seems silly to me.
Yeah.
But the other aspect of this for me is how extreme the punishment is. The one that always sticks out to me is Ray Rice. He got a 2-game suspension
for beating that lady, his wife or girlfriend, whatever. Yeah.
And he gets an entire season for throwing $1,500 on his team to win a game.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems unreal to me. I don't know.
Well, and there's been several clips that people are pointing to saying that Calvin's in bed with Vegas because there were several plays where he just inexplicably stopped running for the end zone, even though he was, I think there was two defenders chasing him, and he was 5-10 yards ahead of them, and he just, for whatever reason, randomly stopped running and let them catch him, essentially. So there was a couple plays like that, and people are saying, oh, maybe there is something to this. But anyway, no, I hate this because, like I said, they're taking all this money from gambling companies, and I almost would say they should make people bet on their own team just so they can guarantee that they try their hardest. Like,
it's literally everyone has buy-in, man.
Yeah, literally everyone on the team has to put in $1,000 on each game or something like that. So they try, I don't know, maybe more.
A portion of your contract is put in on whether or not we win or not.
Exactly. That would make sure everyone was trying their hardest every game. But anyway, no, it's definitely dumb. And obviously for him to make that mistake. And the thing is, he could bet on any other sport, any other game he wanted to. It's just the fact that he bet on NFL games that's strictly off limits for NFL players to bet on NFL games. So he should know that. And now that they're in bed with all these companies, they have a straight line to, hey, this guy is placing bets on games. So that's why it was instantly snuffed out, and he was basically put on suspension almost immediately. So just some other trades cuts. Bobby Wagner got cut by Seattle after they traded Russell Wilson. And he said that he learned the news on Twitter, which is just disgusting for someone that gave 10 years to that organization. I think he's going to –
for him.
Yeah. Well, I don't feel bad for him in the fact that he's getting away from there when they're clearly going to be rebuilding. Right. But they should have been up front with him and say, hey, we got this trade lined up. We're going to get rid of Russell. So if we can't find a suitor for you, then we're going to cut you to free up cap space and let you go sign wherever you want to sign.
Yeah, you definitely deserve better.
If they had just done that, everyone would have been cool. But since they just said it got out on Twitter that he got released and that's how he found out, obviously there's some hurt feelings there. So Bobby Wagner is a perennial Pro Bowler. He's probably lost a step or two, but he's still one of those very intuitive linebackers that makes plays. He's always in the right spot. So, like I said, he's going to have multiple suitors. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a multi-year deal and
I hope he goes
shine wherever he goes. In division?
Oh, yeah. I love it.
I'm trying to think who would have the room. Maybe the Cardinals after getting rid of Chandler Jones?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, Cardinals or maybe even the Rams. I don't know their situation after losing Von Miller.
They don't have cap space. I don't know how they signed Allen Robinson.
I know. As soon as I read it, I was like, where? How? Why?
Yeah, but I guess, I don't know.
That they can make stuff work.
That clearly, because they've been doing it for years, they're going to give Aaron Donald a raise and still bring in free agents somehow. But anywho, Carson Wentz. What did you think about this trade? So Carson Wentz plus a second-round pick to Washington for a 2022 second and third and a 2023 third that's conditional and turns into a second if he plays 70% of the snaps.
I definitely think it's a relatively reasonable trade. I guess the one side of it, and this all came out after the fact, there was a lot of talk from his teammates about leadership and his role, which is very, very concerning to me, because if you remember, I even made the point that I wouldn't have minded making a move for him. I'm glad we didn't, because that's one thing that I think is unacceptable at that position.
Maybe that's why you didn't.
Well, maybe that's why we didn't. I mean, that's why they do an interview process. That's the only thing I would say is I think it's a reasonable trade. I think Washington is maybe banking on them getting more than they're probably getting out of this. Yeah. But time will tell, and then we'll see what Indy ends up doing. Obviously a quarterback.
I think this is a terrible trade. Like Washington was super heavy in on Russell Wilson, and they even offered more than what Denver offered. At least that's what was said. Obviously, we don't know the official offer, but I know at least 3 first-round picks were offered. So obviously that's more than Denver offered. But you can't tell me Carson Wentz is a better player than any of the other guys that were available on the free market that were going to cost less.
The weird part.
Yeah. Because Carson Wentz, Washington absorbed that entire contract. So I think he's on the books for like $28.3 million or something like that. Plus they had to give draft picks. So it just doesn't make sense to me, because they could have signed a Trubisky or I don't know. Who else is out there? Tyrod Taylor, he's already signed since. Jameis, maybe. There's
a handful of guys. For me,
Gardner.
He's the new Nick Foles or Kirk Cousins to me, without the added success. But I think everybody's banking on what he did in his good season, obviously before he went down with Philadelphia.
Frank Reich was pounding the table for him, saying, I'll stick my neck out for this guy.
Yeah,
and then Frank Reich openly, before the draft, said he's not the guy that I had in Philadelphia. So obviously something has happened since Philadelphia. And I think probably the thing that set Carson off is when he went out and Nick Foles came in and won that Super Bowl. Everyone on the team was clamoring for Nick Foles to be the quarterback and not Carson. So I think that probably pissed him off and maybe ruined his relationships there in Philadelphia, and that's why they shipped him out. But I mean,
and that's what makes me worry is if it's a maturity thing. If he's not showing the leadership and obviously handling things like that, I would be nervous in Washington.
Yeah. Well, and I think they essentially mortgaged away a lot of their future draft picks for probably 1 year of a quarterback that they'll be moving on from. So it's unfortunate for them, and that's why I say I absolutely hate this trade. But, I mean, when you're desperate for a quarterback and you can't find one, some people make some pretty desperate moves. So
absolutely.
We already talked about Allen Robinson to the Rams. That's a huge pickup. Obviously, they lost OBJ coming off that knee injury. I'm sure he'll still get signed somewhere, but probably to I don't know if they'll sign a one-year deal or if they'll sign multiple with the first year counting minimum against the cap, since he probably won't be playing for at least a chunk of it. And then Von Miller got this. Okay, this contract sounds terrible, but it really is reasonable. And I'll tell you why. It on paper, it's a 6-year, $120 million deal for Von Miller to go to the Bills. So that sounds like top pass rusher money, even though he's like, 33, I think?
Yep, he's getting up there.
So it sounds terrible for the Bills, but over the first 3 years, it's only 53.5 or something like that. So it's a very reasonable contract, and only those first 3 years are guaranteed. So the last 3 are basically a myth because they're not going to happen unless he becomes a freak of nature and balls out until he's 40. Yeah. So it's basically a 3-year deal worth less than $60 million in total. And I love this deal for the Bills. Obviously, they get a pass rush upgrade. I actually like Von Miller, even though he's was a Denver Bronco. So
he's a fun person. I mean, he's a fun personality for sure.
Yeah, and he's definitely a tough person not to root for. So, I think they've been making some. They cut Beasley today, and then they cut their right tackle that I'm hoping ends up in Las Vegas. My God. Well, I mean,
that'll be hard
you say Oakland for 30-something years. They were in LA for a couple of those, but I don't even remember those years. So anyway, Las Vegas. Hope they get him. I think it's Darrell Williams, if I remember right, is his name. But yeah, they've made some big moves. I think Buffalo has become a destination because of our boy Josh Allen.
So when they signed Von Miller, all I could think about was obviously that last Chiefs drive. That's why you bring in someone like Von Miller, is you have to shut down the other team because your offense obviously is going to throw up points. Josh Allen and that offense is unreal. But
I'd rather not talk about that last drive.
Well, to me, that's what this signing is, cause and effect. They need to up that defense.
You mean the give them 40 yards of cushion and hope for the best?
13 seconds, dude.
Bro.
13 seconds.
I still can't get over that shit. It's like,
all right.
No, they literally gave them 20 yards of cushion and no pass rush. It's like, what do you expect to happen with Patrick Mahomes?
Do you know what bugs me the most about it? And it's my own selfish reasons. I legitimately think that the Bills would have beat the Bengals handedly.
Oh, yeah.
So
no, they would have won by
preseason
20
Super
points.
Bowl prediction would have been, and yours would have been spot on.
Yep. And I think the Bills would have beat the Rams too.
I know.
It's frustrating.
Oh, well, whatever.
What could have been. But other news, trades. We had the Browns trading for Amari Cooper from Dallas for a 5th-round pick and a swap of 6th-round picks.
And releasing Landry.
Released Jarvis Landry. I really don't know why the Browns didn't just let Dallas cut Amari and then try to sign him without giving anything up, because, one, they probably could have signed him at a lesser contract, and maybe he'll renegotiate if they add on a couple years or something like that. But, I mean, Dallas traded for Amari Cooper from the Raiders and gave up a 1st-round pick, gave him a big extension, and then they trade him away for a 5th-round pick. Not a good deal on their part.
The only thing I can think of is that obviously, Dallas has a good salesman on the phone, and that
we got someone interested.
He had a big market,
Yeah.
So they were like, well, we're not going to wait for free agency.
Yeah,
but, man, I don't know. I still can't believe Dallas let him walk.
Well, no, I can. I mean, I watched him with the Raiders, and he was one of those guys that was completely boom or bust. And if you didn't get him involved in the game in the first series, then he basically took the rest of the game off. He didn't try. So
you definitely had more experience with him than I did.
Yeah, no, his attitude. I was so glad when we got rid of him and got a first round pick. Granted, we didn't do anything with that first round pick because that's what we do with the Raiders. But it's fine. At least we didn't end up extending him and then having to watch him sit out games for the rest of his career. But I'm interested to see if he tries to force his way out of Cleveland now with Baker probably leaving and them having to basically rebuild again. Obviously, they have the studs at running back, and they have some pretty good weapons on the defensive side with what's his name? Right end. Sack.
Myles Garrett.
There we go, Myles Garrett. It's like, Jesus, how did I forget that? I knew it was Garrett, but I couldn't remember his first name.
I love seeing it, obviously, seeing the Browns struggle, but
God, you haven't had enough of that, huh?
The handling of Baker is just
Kyle, you haven't had enough seeing them struggle?
No, never.
How? You've been watching it for 35 years. Come on.
Keep it going. Some things I don't like change.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's just a dumpster fire, man. This is horrible.
Yeah. No, it's ridiculous. And the fact that I respect that they told Baker that they were pursuing Watson.
Yeah.
But having that press conference where they said they want an adult at quarterback, that's way over line. And by the way, that adult has several civil cases against him that, maybe suggest he might need to grow up a little bit too. So,
yeah,
I don't know. It was in poor taste, and I think Baker has every right to be pissed off about the situation. Had they just said, hey, we're going to explore this Watson trade, and then if something happens, we'll get you out of here. Okay, that's fine. But basically taking pot shots at him after you've met with Watson, what do you expect to happen?
I've seen a ton of headlines too, basically questioning if Baker's, overstepped his position, and it's like, no. I mean, he got slapped in the face. I'd want to be out of there too.
Yeah. Well, the worst they can say is no, and they did say no, but we'll see how that changes when he starts to not report to practice and things like that, if that's how far he wants to take it. Maybe it doesn't even get to that and they work out a trade with someone. I know Seattle would probably rather have him than Drew Lock at quarterback.
Oh, yeah, there's a handful of teams that I think would make a move at it if they were open. But
Broncos winning the division. Don't like that. I hope you're wrong. Let me just say that. It is going to be pretty tough. So, let's see what else we got. Zadarius Smith. Oh, yeah. This is your point. Why don't you go ahead and talk about it?
It's just weird how many of these, and granted, I get it. These aren't settled deals until, everybody signed the contract. But it's just crazy how many players have said they're going back to their team or whatever. The three that jump out was Zadarius Smith with Green Bay. J.D. McKissick was going to Buffalo and then pulled out and went back to Washington, which, my God, what are you thinking? And then Randy Gregory did the same thing with the Cowboys, and now he's going to the Broncos. It's just, I don't know. It's just very weird. I don't know if it's, the journalism side of it, jumping the gun, or if it really is, just kidding, change my mind, change your heart, whatever. Just seems to be a lot of them happening this year.
I really think a lot of them are change of heart, and that's the brutal part about the legal tampering stuff is you can't make the deals official until 2 days later. So a lot of them that get announced, the people are at their former team ends up talking them back or whatever. In the Randy Gregory situation, it was Dallas basically added some clauses that would get them out of the contract if he got in trouble at all or missed practice or anything like that. So no other contracts in the NFL looked like that, so that's why he backed out of there and ended up going to Denver. J.D. McKissick, I have no idea. Maybe Buffalo said, hey, we're going to make a signing of Von Miller, so we don't have cap space for you anymore. Maybe something like that where it wasn't signed. But, yeah, there's no way I would want to be in Washington over Buffalo.
The only thing I could think of is he probably will get utilized in Washington more. Yeah. I think he would be probably – a number 3, third down, out of the backfield. He's used a lot in the passing game. He wasn't going to go there and take a majority of the snaps.
No, not with Singletary and Zach Moss.
Especially the way they came on late in the year. So
yeah,
maybe that's it. I don't know. It's crazy to me to choose Washington when you had a chance to go to a Super Bowl contender. So it just seems like a weird move to me.
But Carson Wentz, we're going to win the Super Bowl.
We'll see.
Let's start with the division. Moving on to something that hits home with me, and that is Steph Curry got injured, had his ankle rolled up on. They said it was a foot injury. Haven't gone into much further details than that, but they basically said it's not expected to keep him out for the playoffs. With it being this late in the season, I really hope he gets back, but as he go, we go. So if he's not back for the playoffs, I don't think that the Warriors will be much of a contender going in without him. So, and then the news we've all been waiting for: Major League Baseball is back. Lockout's finally over. Players did very well in this new CBA. I think they could have done even better if they really wanted to, but at that point, they had gotten most of their asks, and they weren't going to miss any games if they just signed off on this new CBA proposal. So I think that was the biggest part. I think if they would have held out for a month, it would have pissed off a lot of fans, and me for one. I was already pissed off about the whole situation, mostly because of the owners. But basically what it came down to is universal DH, so AL and NL will both have the designated hitter, a higher CBT that it increases every year as well. So the owner's initial proposal was raising it to like 220 from 210 and then leaving it there for 4 years. And then in the last year, it would go up 10 million or something like that. So it actually jumps every year all the way up to like 245, I think. And then the higher minimum salary for all players, and then the pre-arbitration eligible pool for up to $50 million. So what that basically boils down to is any players that aren't eligible for arbitration, if they get any awards like Rookie of the Year, if they get MVP votes, Cy Young votes, anything like that, they'll be eligible to receive up to, I think the highest value is $1.75 million, which is nowhere what they're worth if they're
in those
awesome talks. But previously, they'd be getting like $500,000 for being in the majors. So getting their minimum salary up to $710,000, I think it was $710,000 is a bonus. And then on top of that, you can get almost $2 million on top of that if you win any awards. So huge win for the players. This is net new money, so it's all new money for the players that the owners will be forking out and griping the whole time they're paying those checks.
Oh, those poor owners.
And then you want to talk about your Pirates first? You want me to talk about the A's?
Mine's pretty quick because there's a lot of unknowns. I don't know a lot.
Mine's very depressing. So yeah, you go first.
We'll end on a very negative note.
Yes.
I just
as always
super pumped. Our first spring training games tomorrow against the Yankees. Yep. So I'm excited because our whole roster outside of because we traded Kevin Newman, Jacob Stallings. Basically, we have Hayes and Reynolds coming back. Oh, and Ben Gamble. A handful of our pitchers, and then the rest is just a bunch of young kids, and I'm excited to see how they play. O'Neal Cruz is probably the one I'm the most excited about. He's our 6'7" shortstop who may spend some time in the outfield, but he's a monster at bat, and I'm super pumped to see him play. So
you guys need to get the Ke'Bryan Hayes and Stallings deals done like yesterday. Those guys need to get extended. Yes, Reynolds. Sorry, Reynolds.
Yes, they do.
That would be huge.
We need it because we need some kind of a backbone for this rebuild, somebody to lead us, and I think those two guys can do it. So,
and speaking of rebuild, nice segue there. The A's have traded Matt Chapman, Matt Olson, I
just want to hug you. I'm so sorry.
And Chris Bassett.
Yeah.
So 3 of our top dogs from the last 3 years are now gone. They're on other teams. Matt Chapman went to the Blue Jays. Matt Olson went to the Braves, and then the next day signed a 8-year, $168 million contract. So very up for him. I love Matt Olson. He's one of my favorite players and will continue to be. Obviously, he's the replacement for the Atlanta Braves' Freddie Freeman, and he went to the Dodgers. But I think the Braves actually made out pretty well in that because Olson's an up-and-coming player where Freddie Freeman is probably at his peak already and probably going to be on the downturn coming soon. So not that I think Freddie Freeman's a bust or anything like that, or he's washed. He's definitely not. He's still going to be contributing for years to come. But that Dodgers roster is just pissing me off. Like,
I just want to puke every time I read another headline.
Last year they were at like 270, I think, for their salary cap. And if Trevor Bauer wasn't on the leave, he was still technically getting paid, but I don't think it counted against the cap. Maybe it did. I don't know. But anyway, they're going to be close to $300 million with all the signings they've made. So being on a fan of the A's and the Pirates, and our owners are spending, $30 to $50 million on our payroll. It's like, how are we supposed to compete? But anyway, no, you don't. So that's what we're going to be dealing with this season. And Howard Terminal actually took a turn for the worst over the weekend. I think it was probably Tuesday actually, but they basically, the Port Authority said, we're not going to sign off on releasing this land to you guys. So at that point, they would have to lease it. And that means they'll be paying, rent on a piece of property that they were trying to own. So not ideal. And now Dave Cabell, the president of the A's, has said that they have made a new offer on property in Vegas. Don't know if that's a real offer. It could just be them posturing and saying, hey, we offered these guys $10 for their, 10-acre lot or something. Who knows if it's real? I think they'll still end up in Oakland because the owner doesn't want to move to Vegas. I don't think there's any chance of them actually doing that. So anyway, it's going to be a rough season in Oakland, but I'm hoping this helps get the team ready for when the ground is broken on that new stadium, which is probably going to be in the next 3 to 6 years, something like that. So
if you guys can hit a really good rebuild and time it with a stadium opening, that could be pretty special. If you guys could hit the ground running about the time you end up in a new stadium.
Yep. So I think with that's enough depressing news. Anything else that you had that you wanted to bring up before we call it?
No, I think that's it for me. A lot of happenings in the NFL and probably more coming.
Oh yeah. I think the new year started yesterday, so there's plenty of time for teams to make moves, cuts, trades, and all that. So I'm sure we'll be talking more about all those coming up soon. And as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope you guys would like and share and rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those that let you rate. And with that being said, Kyle, sign off.
Always a pleasure, man. It'd be great if we could get some comments, get some conversation pieces. We'd love to dive into some stuff. So hopefully we can hear from a few people. But as always, it's a pleasure, Bill.
Yep. Talk to you soon, buddy.